Hello everyone, thank you for joining me again at Just K. To all my subscribers, thank you, I'm glad to have you. If you're new here, sit back and get comfortable while we talk about everything that is health, mind, body, and soul. In our last video, I gave you a description of certain instances that happened to me in my lifetime, whether it be as a caregiver, as a worker, as a patient who's suffering healthcare disparities. I will click that video and put that video here. In the video prior to that, I gave you some history on where these healthcare disparities were founded, born, or originated from. And I will also link that video here. At the end of the last video, I said we were going to dive into some things that I do in the way I live my life, how I choose my battles, and so on and so forth. And so that's what we're going to do today. For me, I think the biggest aspect in the change in my life started with how I viewed spirituality and what I chose to do spiritually. And so that's where I'm going to start at today. I went from Christianity to a more, I'd say, Indigenous Africanic spirituality. Indigenous African spirituality refers to the native or indigenous beliefs prior to Islamic or Christian colonization. It was a cultural identity that was passed down from parents to children, and it was passed through stories, myths, and they were values, principles, and ways of life, not doctrine or religious rules. The part that we're going to deal with today in this part of this multiple series talk we're doing is going to be on ancestors. I chose to start there because that's the absolute, in today's times and the culture we have today, one of the most important things you can do for yourself. For all of you Christians out there who feel like the worship of ancestors is an evil or bad thing, the first thing I would tell you to do is again refer to your Bible, where it speaks plenty of ancestor worship and tells you basically to worship your ancestor. The other thing I would like you to do is to pay attention to the word worship and understand that the words we put to our indigenous African ancestors is not the same way as they viewed it. So we're taking their culture and we're looking for social equivalence in our culture. Social equivalence meaning something that seems like it's the same or close to the same. And a lot of times that's just not the case. But for your benefit, we're going to call it honoring your ancestors. Honor of ancestors is something we do all the time, whether we realize it or not. When someone passes and we're telling stories about them, when you say you felt someone here because a light flickered, or you're wearing a favorite pair of shoes that an ancestor had on. The word for ancestor in Yoruba is Ajun, and the belief is that ancestors visit us, giving us information and direction just the same way they would have while they were alive. Most or all of these messages concern the well-being and health of the family. We can communicate with spirits 5 generations removed, because they still, the spiritual connection they maintain with their living relatives is still strong. And it's said that these ancestors are our closest link to God. The power of ancestors in your life in the tradition, African religion, was such a strong pull to me because it resembles the homage I'd love to pay and feel toward my own ancestors. In African tradition, ancestors they're a part of every major event, holiday, tradition, whether it's birth, marriage, death, finding a job. The ancestors are part of it, and a lot of times offerings were given at these events. Let me explain really quickly that an offering is a bloodless overture or a bloodless offering, okay, to spiritual entities for change, as a way of opening communication with a certain deity or Orisha, a way to express thanks for a favor done, a way to get the attention of an Orisha, even an advance payment of a favor. And we'll get to those. Those are all done. Those are ancestor worship. The other ways that you can honor your ancestors, like I said, is when you speak about them, when you're telling stories to other family members or friends. Remember, the Bible says, anytime 2 or more stand together and say a thing, it is so. Paying libations, which we'll go over in a future video. We're going to focus today on altars, and I'm going to just get you started on that. So, an altar is considered the place where this dimension can meet with the dimension of holding those who have passed. It is a place where your ancestors can come and communicate with you. If you're going to have an altar, there are some basic things that you need to know. Now understand, we are talking about ancestral altars. There are many types of altars, and we're talking about the altar for your ancestors. You need to have a table. It needs to be wood or glass, not just any old table that you bought and then used and had in your attic for a while. It has to be either a brand new table that nothing else has been on, no other energies have existed on, or it can be a family heirloom table that has been passed on through at least the 5 generations. You need to have a special place in your house for your altar, a nice corner or somewhere else. But here's what's important. Your altar needs to be in a place that is not viewable to the public eye. Not just anybody should be looking at your altar. You can, if you have to have it in a spot that's more covered, that's more open, make sure it's done in a way that you can cover it, because it's not supposed to be viewed by just anybody in the public. You need to have water on your altar. You need to have pictures of your deceased ancestors. Also of note, make sure it's just your deceased ancestors. Don't put pictures of yourself on there, and don't put pictures of your loved ones that are still living on there. You would add things that belong to the ancestors, whether it's a cross, if there was a particular book they held dear, a picture, whatever it is, a certain statue, put that would go on the altar. You need to have a divination tools. I've seen some say this, and I've seen some not. But I go with the divination tools. What a divination tool, look at tarot cards or ruins. And what this does is just like the process of translation from one dimension to another. Candles. There's one particular candle that should remain on your altar at all times, and that is a white candle that represents purity. So think of it as the purity of the communication between you and your ancestors. There are colored candles, different color candles evoke different energies. A red candle fosters love, sex, good health, protection, dissolving of fears. A pink candle you would use to achieve affection or success. Yellow candle is to dream and to have your dreams come true. Orange candle is to make you attractive to other people. A black candle destroys your enemies. A blue candle is to create harmony and peace in your home. Brown candle attracts money during financial hard times. A green candle also attracts money, work, and matrimony. A gold candle brings money, luck, and financial success. A gray candle removes undesirable influences in your life. And we discussed white candle, which brings purity. The things that you do with this altar is you talk to your ancestors, you talk to or with them as you would if they were here. You give them food, you offer them their favorite foods. My ancestors were big on black-eyed peas, and it was an especially part of the New Year tradition. And so New Year's, we have black-eyed peas for my ancestors that go in the altar. Favorite drinks, you can put their favorite drinks in there. My ancestors loved vodka, and so we put vodka in our altars to offer the ancestors at occasion. If your ancestor loved a good cigar, you put a cigar and you leave that in the altar. At times your ancestors will, once you're flowing with the communication between the ancestors, they'll tell you what to put in their altar, what they need, and then you will give that to them. The altars were traditionally in African spirituality maintained by a senior member of a tribe, clan, or extended family. In today's society, you could still do that. My guess is that you are the king of your castle, and so that's how you're going to do it. You don't just put the table up, put the pictures up, have the Bible sitting there, have the water there, and you're done. And you talk to your ancestors, give them food and drink, and you're done. The first thing you need to know about is it is important to keep your altar clean and maintained. You don't want to upset your ancestors, and to have a dirty altar filled with dust and debris is a sign of disrespect. I won't stress enough, keeping your altar not viewable to the public. Your homies, your best friends, they are not to look at your family altar. That is your manifestation place. Family members is one thing. Blood relatives, part of that line, is a whole other thing. But your best friends shouldn't be checking out and making observations and comments on your altar. When you spend time at your altar, you need to make sure you're clean. What I mean by that is at least your hands, your feet, and your mouth, breath are clean. Energy transmission comes feet and hands. You're speaking with your mouth. And so it's important to have those things clean so there's no communication debris going on. It is also a sign of respect. I spend time with my altar throughout the day. I cannot show you my altar because it's not for public view, but I can tell you that I spend time throughout it, the day. I maintain it daily. I talk to my ancestors. I'm learning to listen and hear what they want me to do and receive. Before you really get started with your altar and get manifesting, there's another thing you should know, that there are certain Orishas. Now, there's your ancestor, and then there's the Orisha. The Orishas, that is something we're going to go into on the next video, because there's certain Orishas that you've been asked to get a hold of, your ancestors. And I would really like to share some of those Orishas with you and some of those stories. I really hope you guys are liking this and we are on the same vibe. Talk to your ancestors, even if you don't start an altar today. Talk to them. Remember what it feels like to just have them around, and understand that that energy is still here and that energy is desperately needed today. I promise you, you have ancestors that can tell you how to get through a lot of the things going on in this culture and climate today. You have ancestors that can keep you healed, that can keep you safe, that can keep you protected. It is so important now, especially as we as a people are coming into knowledge of our own history and ourselves, that we utilize all the tools we have available to us to make us healthy, happy, and prosperous. And I think that's what you should do. Are you willing to use an altar? Let me know in the comment box. Do you have an altar? How has it worked in your life? What do you think about altars? Do you know about the Orishas? That's what we're going to be talking about in the next video. Until then, take the time to like, subscribe, click on that bell for notifications, and I will see you next time on Just K. Remember, everybody, health is mind, body, and soul. Ashe.